I always thought I'd marry my best friend Ethan someday, until I caught myself kissing his new friend Noah. Something broke in Ethan's eyes that night. A year later, he finally told me his shocking secret, and my world collapsed. I ran away, dated recklessly, then found myself pregnant and alone. When they announced their wedding, I made a decision nobody saw coming. Did I give them the ultimate revenge or the ultimate gift? Watch until the end to find out.